Remember, please hit like and subscribe for me. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go. Hi, everyone. Today is Monday, January the 6th, and this is the Moneyball Morning Report for the Benzinga Pro platform. My name is Anne-Marie Band. Charts by TrendSpider and Gamma Flows by Mentor Q. This is my last week in Japan after being here for almost a month. And I'm looking forward to coming home. I really am. It's been a beautiful trip, fantastic, but ready to get back to work. So let's take a look at the E-mini SP. We had a lot of news come into the overnight. A lot of it was clickbait. And what we've noticed is that coming out into the Globex and further on, we're still grinding higher. Markets are not heading dramatically lower. Silver and gold haven't broken out tremendously, although we will look at silver. That did move a fair bit higher than I thought. But today, here's what we're going to stare down. As we take a look at the E-mini S&P on the 30-minute chart, we'll notice that we are right at the call wall for the 0 DTEs, and that is 69.20. It's also showing up as the one-day min, which, no, that's not right. That's a high volume node. So this is something for us to pay attention to, the 69.20. If we breach this area, we have pricing congestion that moves us to the region around 69.25. My thought is, since we are above the VWAP and above this tight moving average, I think it's a 14, something like that, it tells us that dips are buys. Now, momentum is a little bit down, so that tells us, hey, wait for the test of the support region to go long. To me, the first pass would be at 69.04. The anchored VWAP, if you're looking for a real sweet spot, that would be 68.96 for a long action event. If you're looking to see where the targets might be, we're looking at 69.36, which is a high volume node. And then the point of control for the short term over these several days is also attached to an anchored VWAP at 69.50. That also is where the call wall was before the market started shifting around, right? And now it's up at 70.50. Okay, so what's the goal? We can see two motions in focus. We can see lower highs and lower lows. But we are also seeing a movement up into the top of the range. A lot of people are thinking, hey, listen, seasonal weakness into January, that might put people a little bit short ahead of the curve. My thought would be, listen, just let it rotate, come back into where it's going, and then you can take your trade if you're looking for a short. Look for highs where everyone has rejected. That's going to give you a better price point for yourself. The 0 DT put support is at 68.75, and the put wall is at 6,800. Let's get to the NQ. Having a look at the NQ, it's not quite as stable in terms of trend as the ES, but if we ignore the great big spike that happened here and then the dramatic collapse, that way it looks pretty similar. And you can see that this is sort of an exhaustion event that occurs here right at that midnight for me. So that would have been midnight for me, 10 a.m. candlestick on Friday. And so that was pretty savage from a rotation perspective. Where are we coming into a high volume node resistance area, 25,550? That's old support. Could it be new resistance? Yes, it could. So far, it looks like that. But what's the fly in the ointment? Well, the fly in the ointment is that momentum is above zero and we're making higher lows. So you want to be very careful thinking about, hey, I'm just going to short the low. Let momentum and get underneath the VWAP, get the failed retest of the line around 25,450, and then you'll be able to open it into the gap fill, prior support at 25,360, the 0 DTE put wall, 25,290, and then we're in play, right? It is very hard to say what the markets are going to do right now. It really is a Gordian knot. There are a lot of spinning plates and there are a lot of balls in the air. And when we're trading in that kind of environment, just make it super simple. Hey, am I holding trend? And if I'm not holding trend, give yourself a little bit of room right there. If you're not holding trend, then, hey, I probably need to go in the other direction. Overall, the motion is down and leaking, but we are still in pre-market, right? It's 4:29 Eastern Time, 4:29 a.m. Eastern Time. It is 6:29 p.m. Tokyo time, but at the end of the day, you just look for the failure of support to hold. Okay, that's going to be the most important thing if you're staring down short action, or the blow off top event that comes into all of this resistance up here at 29,760. The call wall 26,000, the put wall 24,500. All right, let's take a look at micro Bitcoin. This one's running pretty hot, right? This looks a lot like silver, only silver's up near the higher spaces. So this is moving in a pretty important way. So let's take a peek at what the broader time frames are. Now notice, the call walls and the put walls are underneath the current price. Now that means the put sellers, they're the ones making money. The call sellers are not making money. So what might they do? Well, what they might try to do is work themselves up into the 94,800 area and then try to short it. So my thought would be, if it gets up into that space, watch out. I mean, it'll be pretty far away from the moving averages. I suspect that pullbacks are going to give us buy zones. Where might that pullback be? I am thinking just above the 0 DTE call wall, and that is around 91,000. So, it's printing 93 and some change, and so it's pretty far away, but the pullbacks are very likely to give us buying pressure today simply because we are on top of the moving averages. We've got a ton of upside momentum, so any kinds of dips could give us buying zones. We are above the one-day max, which usually ends up being resistance, but this is a very big move. So pullbacks into support, old support, new resistance, recapture of the support, retest of the support. That's the simplest mechanical flow that you can use to trade. So somewhere around 91,000 makes for a great buy point in my mind. Crude. Let's take a look at crude. A lot of things going on in crude, but still sitting in a patch where we've got lower highs and lower lows. So the big thought is, what's going to happen to crude with this Venezuela bit? And if you joined us for market kickoff, I did talk about how much potential is sitting in Venezuela, but how difficult it will be to get those things out of the ground. There needs to be a complete regime change there. And, that means more than 2 years of what the administration has left in its hands. All right. So a lot of big companies are saying, hey, listen, if I'm positioned in here and I put CapEx of X many billion into Venezuela to help get their oil out of the ground and have them more efficiently move as a country, and the next administration comes in and says, yeah, we're not going to do that, or I'm going to make it tough for you, then all that money's down the toilet. So there are a lot of things that people are thinking about there, and we can see that oil is still in its overall motion. It did fade. It went into the one-day min. The one-day min is 56, and now it's bouncing again. That would have been a great buy zone, but only into resistance, right? Because the trend is down. And so if we're taking a bounce off the floor of a support zone, right, where we can see our momentum events just giving us that bounce, we can only go into resistance simply because that's all the chart is giving us. This is a very downward flow. And so a lot of people were hoping that oil would give them fireworks to trade. And indeed, not so much, right? Not so much. A lot of things will unfold in the future. Right now, a short anywhere between 57 and 57.30 looks like a pretty fair assessment for that trade. The put wall is at 55 and the call wall is at 62. So they've given themselves a lot of upside pressure there, but it still is sitting in and there are a lot of people that are very short oil and they would like to be shorter oil, but this is not an easy pitch for what we're staring down. Let's take a look at silver. Silver, it came in here. I thought, hey, listen, this will be a nice short right here. And it chopped me off. Luckily, only a couple $100 at risk, but I had silver and gold short at the same time. So it took me back for about 400, but I've moved all of that all the way back up because I had a $400 trade in oil and then the two downward trades in the metals and then a trade to the upside in silver. And now I'm back to where I was. So things look pretty bullish here. We've got momentum that gives us resistance up at 76.30 to 76.40. That's pretty important. If we stare down the actual formations, this is a big support zone, breakaway here. So this is short covering all the way up to here. And now they are building another area of congestion right around this patch and breaking out. So if we just clone this to the upside, it looks like 76.35 is a potential target. Now, for me, I believe silver's got some upside. Yes, I believe it's going to head higher over time. But what I believe that the traders are going to see is a forcing out of speculators. And so that's going to be big wicks to the upside that fade. And so I'm still thinking to myself, hey, if I were staring this down, I would wait for the break up above 76. That's the highest pre-market level. I would watch to see if it collapses under any kind of volume event. And then if it does, I'd wait for it to get under my moving averages. Right now, this moving average is up. The VWAP is up. Momentum is trending. Excuse me. Everything looks really bullish. So any pullbacks into the areas around 74.70 or better, 74.30, going to make for a pretty nice buy zone, right? It has broken out well above the 75 area that I thought was the line in the sand, and we are potentially moving back to the upside. So if we use the 4-hour chart as a target formation, staying above $75.70 would give us the next target area of $79. So right back up to the top of the range. Right now, dips or buys, and the box that they've been collecting inventory in gives us a sweet spot at about $74.60. Let's take a look at gold. Gold also rising pretty well, right? Wow, let's see what we ought to do with this one. Let's go backwards, meaning to a higher time frame. So we are in a breakout formation. This is the first line of resistance. That's 44.55. That's where it's sitting right now. Draw a line right there. Also near the anchored VWAP event, but it's strong. And so shallow pullbacks that hold maybe 44.40 or so will give us a very nice bounce event. And that bounce event should send us into our first target near 44.90 to 45.30. So there's a lot of interesting things going on here in this chart, but the rise of metals is geopolitical. It's got nothing to do with supply at this particular juncture. Just remember that, because we're in a backdrop that's a little sticky. Okay, for my Benzinga folks, here we are sitting with SPY. We've got lower highs and lower lows in general, with the, that's an expanding, broadening downside wedge. Now, those will break to the upside fairly significantly. So you want to watch for the break above $685 to send you into potentially $690. That's being said, there's fair resistance above us and fair support below us. And so if we're staring down our 30-minute chart, we can see that SPY just started printing maybe an hour ago. And so what we are seeing is still lower highs, but it gapped up. Where are our moving averages? They're sitting below us. And so that means that's a support area. So pullbacks into 682 might be the first buy zone, but if it doesn't immediately catch and continue forward, chances are it's going to come down into 680, right? Markets are going to be very sideways during this uncertainty event. So be careful, and I'll see you in the streams. I am still in Tokyo, so no midday money ball until I return. So the first one will be Friday that we will have, and we'll get to work on it. All right. Take care, everybody.